that will change everything.
I want to buy Greenland.
You'll make them an offer they simply can't refuse.
Can we really just buy Greenland?
I believe there's a way.
This is a man who does not take no for an answer.
What does a man do?
He fights.
This is not the end. It's just a beginning.
Hello, person on the other side of the screen. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is March 6th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, on YouTube, on Locals. Share, subscribe, tap that notification bell. And for reasons that are so complex I can't even begin to explain, we are not doing a post-game show today. Just bear with me. We'll make it up to you tomorrow. We've got a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A on the second half of today's show. And actually, we're going to shift a little bit from what we've been doing over the last couple of days that obviously been very hardcore Trump, hardcore politics. We're going to talk a bit about other things happening in the world because I don't know if you know this, but there are other countries and they have problems. So let's just dive right in, actually. We'll start with a clip from Bill Maher. Have not talked about him in a week or two. I'm sure you guys are missing old Bill. And on Real Time on Friday night, he had Fareed Zakaria on from CNN. Fareed is one of these guys. It's sort of like a Jake Tapper type. He's not completely horrible, although Jake is basically completely horrible at this point. But, you know, he's not like sort of brain dead woke, but he mostly gets everything wrong, which kind of is why he has a TV show, I guess. And anyway, they got into discussing free speech, and particularly across the pond and into Europe, talking about Germany. And Germany has major problems right now as it pertains to immigration, as it pertains to free speech, and much more. Maher is always on the right side of free speech. And Zakaria was calling out JD because, as you know, he gave that big speech in Germany just a couple weeks ago, talking about how free speech, or the lack thereof, is actually the biggest threat to Europe right now.
Real experts on international affairs, and JD Vance, while we were off the other week, made a speech in Munich. A lot of people were shocked by it. I thought half of it was pretty shocking because it was about this election that they just had in Germany, where there is a party on the ballot that is very Nazi-friendly. But the first part of the speech was about free speech. That I didn't think he was so wrong about, especially since I had just seen the 60 Minutes report. Did you see that the week before about how they handle free speech in Germany? Wow, this is not the only country where the pendulum doesn't land in the middle. Apparently Germany is so afraid to look like their Nazi past that they're literally knocking on people's doors and taking their phones and their computers if you just insult people online.
We have an amazing set of protections with the First Amendment, and the Germans have a particular history. You're right. You know, for example, Holocaust denial, which is allowed in the U.S. Anyone can say whatever they want. It's illegal in Germany because they're sensitive to the Nazi past in much of Europe, mostly in Germany. But what I really thought was offensive about that speech was the premise of the speech was that this is the greatest danger facing Europe today. Not Russian aggression, not Chinese
or lack of speech in Russia.
Right. I mean,
God, there's so much to talk about there. First off, let me just, Bill, I'm going to give you largely a pass because you're good on free speech. I am going to ding you for a moment because the party that you're basically calling the new Nazis is the AfD, who did extremely well in the election, although they did not win. The conservatives won, and now they're going to align with the Social Democrats, which kind of sucks for the average German. But that aside, they are not Nazis. They want borders and they want to protect German culture. And I know that gets confusing for people with Germany's past, but they are headed up by a woman who is a lesbian who is married to a Sri Lankan lesbian. If that is the face of modern Nazis, then well, Nazis just ain't what they used to be. Okay, but that aside, what's interesting about the clip is that Bill, of course, is usually right on free speech. Fareed there is mostly concerned that actually the biggest threats, he's not really worried about the free speech threat that might be happening in Germany, that police are showing up because people put memes online or make fun of people or dare talk about Islam or jihad. He's mostly concerned that Russia and China and some of these other things are threats. They are threats, but I think most people Talk to your friends over in Britain, if you have any, and ask them what they feel is the biggest threat right now. And most of them actually will talk about immigration first, because they've just let in all of these people that are destroying their culture. We'll get to more of that in a second. But then it is the chilling effect around free speech. People are afraid to say what they think. They have literal police officers showing up and arresting grandmas over memes. So if Germany or Britain or some of these other countries are going to fall, it's because they're going to fall on their own sword. They will not be able to debate any of the important issues. How do you debate immigration? How do you debate borders or any of these other things if you don't have free speech first? There was a bunch of old guys a couple hundred years ago who wore white wigs, and they wrote on some old papers, and they put down this thing in America called the First Amendment, and they made it first, and it was about free speech, and there was a reason they made it first. And then the Second Amendment, which was to protect the First Amendment, that was the second one for a reason. That had something to do with, you able to have arms and defend yourself. So I think we kind of got it right here, and we should be defending the people all over the world who want to speak freely about issues. And if you don't, if you think you're watching this and you're going, Dave, come on, Germany doesn't have a problem as it relates to free speech. This obviously is made up. They're not arresting grandmas who are posting memes online. Well, don't take my word for it. Take, how about 60 Minutes word for it?
A stiff fine, and sometimes keeps their devices.
How do people react when you take their phones from them?
They are shocked. It's a kind of punishment if you lose your smartphone. It's even worse than the fine you have to pay.
Use your whole life.
All right, there is something creepy about the German accent when it comes to, like, we are going to take your stuff and, just sit down, show me your papers. But this is really happening. The fact that these people who are doing it are laughing about it, this is incredibly dangerous. What do you think happens over time if people can't debate issues properly? Well, bad ideas get pushed further underground, they don't get destroyed, and then elections become sort of just LARPing nonsense because nobody's actually talking about what's really bothering them. And then, bad things tend to stem from that. Now, let's connect this over to the UK, because the UK has a whole bunch of problems. And Richard Dawkins, who has been sort of the leading, you could say him and Sam Harris really have been sort of the leading atheists in the world. Now, the atheist, particularly the new atheist movement, has collapsed over the last decade or so. I think largely that's good. And Dawkins himself has even begrudgingly admitted that he is glad to live in a Christian country, talking about Britain, because it defends his liberal atheist beliefs. I want to throw back to a clip from about a year and a half ago. He was on Piers Morgan, and here they are talking about an ISIS bride and Islam, and you can see how nervous he gets, although doesn't really have a problem criticizing, say, Christianity.
There's been a big debate about this ISIS bride, Shamima Begum, whether she should be allowed to come back to this country. Do you have a view about that?
I'd rather not say.
You'd rather not say?
I haven't studied it enough.
Well, she was married to an ISIS fighter.
I know.
She was but she was 15 when she went out there. The debate really is, was she groomed to be part of this terror group in Syria? And as such, should we show mercy and allow her back to this country?
Yes, I'm not going to say about that.
Are you worried about, do you get threats because of the positions you've taken on some of these things? Yeah. When you saw what happened to Salman Rushdie, didn't send a shudder through you? Are you saying no, you don't want to talk about it? Or?
Yes.
Right. That's interesting in itself. Because there are areas which you would prefer not to discuss.
Yes. I should have said that before we started.
That's a chilling clip. Let me give some kudos to Piers for doing a nice job right there. Richard Dawkins has spent his life attacking Christianity, largely attacking the West, because if you're attacking Christianity, and you end up attacking the West, and the West is the thing that defended your life as a liberal atheist. So he would have no problem. You can watch literally thousands of speeches of his online talking about Christianity, but when he's asked about an ISIS bride, that's not great. You marry an ISIS dude, maybe you shouldn't come back to the UK. That's not bigoted or anything else, but he's afraid to talk about it. You can really see, he can barely move his mouth, his body language, everything, really afraid to talk about it. That is a problem, I would say, and it's a direct problem with what's happening in the UK right now. My friend Lawrence Fox, who's been on the show, he at one time ran for mayor. He's an actor who got canceled years ago because he was a little politically outspoken. He ran for the mayor of London. It did not work out for him, but he's very politically involved. He put this video up. It's going massively, massively viral right now. And check this out. He wrote, It was a good millennium, thanks to the hundreds of thousands of brave men who sacrificed their lives only for traitor politicians to hand Britain over to Islam. The dying gasps of a once most successful continuous culture on earth surrendered. And we're going to play a little audio of it for about 10 seconds. So what they're doing there, these are Ramadan celebrations in Windsor Castle, which is a Protestant royal residence and fortress in England. That's the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. And they're playing Ramadan celebrations there. Now, you might say in and of itself, that's not, what's the problem? What's the problem? It looked peaceful and everything else. The problem is that, well, there's several problems. I would say one problem is, would it go the other way? How many places of Muslim worship are opened up for Jews or Christians or Hindus or Buddhists to pray in? I don't have an abacus with me, but it's not many. That's number one. Number two, the other problem is that the UK has a massive problem as it pertains to immigration and integrating people into their society. And it's just a reality that is uncomfortable to talk about, but where Islam spreads is not good for the Richard Dawkins types. It's not good for the women. It's not good for the other religious minorities. It's not good for the gays. And often it's not good for the Muslims themselves who wish to think a little bit differently. So there is a big problem here that I think is it's sort of, we're fixing it in America right now with what we're doing with our borders, and we've done it much better in terms of a melting pot. But Europe is realizing that they have a major problem on their hands, which brings us to this from End Wokeness. Check out this survey. 7 in 10 Europeans believe that their country is accepting too many migrants. And here are the results by country. Greece, 90% of their citizens believe that. Cyprus, 84%. Ireland, 78%. Austria, 77%. Germany, 77%. Bulgaria, 76%. Poland, 75%. Italy, 74%. France, 70%. Spain, 70%. Sweden, 70%. And that's from El País News. These numbers, how long can that hold? If a native population, put aside what country we're talking about, what the culture is like, anywhere on Earth, or just think of a science fiction movie on another planet. There's a native population that has a way of life. Then another group of people come in and they decide not to meld into that way of life or to try to work with that way of life, but to dominate that way of life. And it only goes one way. And then suddenly 80% of the natives start getting pissed. How do you think this ends? I would say not well. And I think we really dodged a bullet by electing Donald Trump to be president of the United States, because we're dealing with it here. Again, we don't have the exact same problems. We're protected by 2 bodies of water, and even our Mexico situation is better than this, and we're dealing with it. But Europe's got a lot to think about, and people are afraid to talk about it, and that's directly connected to what's going on in Germany with arresting people, which is also happening in the UK and everything else. All right, we're going to bring it back to the States and talk about some of our political craziness in just a moment, but first, Prolon. Life is hectic, long work weeks, busy weekends, and before you know it, you're feeling and looking depleted. But what if there was a way to reset your body at a cellular level without the struggle of traditional fasting? That's exactly what Prolon does. Prolon is not just another diet, it's science. Research for decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by leading medical centers, Prolon's fasting-mimicking diet nourishes your body while making your cells think that they're fasting. This 5-day program is simple. You get prepackaged soups, snacks, and beverages that keep you in a fasting state while supporting fat loss, healthy blood sugar levels, improved energy and focus, skin rejuvenation, and here's the kicker, 3 cycles of Prolon have been shown to reduce your biological age score by an average of 2.5 years. Right now, Prolon is offering Rubin Report listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. Just go to prolonlife.com/Dave. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Dave to claim your discount and bonus gift. So you guys know Scott Jennings over there on CNN. The man makes sense every day. Whatever they're paying him, they are not paying him enough. He deserves a raise, although it's kind of low-hanging fruit dealing with the types that they put him on these panels with. But I liked what he said here about what percentage it is that Trump gets right and why that kind of works in politics. Take a look.
Trump is like the 80-20 president. He gets on the right side of all these 80-20 issues. Democrats knee-jerk and take the 20. And then what happens? Today, CBS News poll this morning, Donald Trump sitting at a 53% approval rating, the highest he's ever recorded in that survey. Why? because Democrats are taking the wrong side of all of these obvious issues, number one. And number two, they're giving him an enormous amount of latitude to move fast and break things, which I heard used in a pejorative fashion. But when you're talking about the government, that's what people want
and Democrats
keep Trump to do.
You can even see the way everyone gives him side eye during that, even the people that kind of agree with him. There's just this look like, oh, what's he saying now? Oh, no, he's making too much sense. I'm going to have to respond to that. But of course, he's right. I mean, the two easy examples of this would be the border and the gender nonsense, right? Everybody, every sane person in America, except for the most broken-brained progressives and the true activists, Antifa type, and the sold-out USAID Democrats and the media people, everyone else in America knew that having a border is an important thing to have. Trump was right when he said it back in 2015, and he's right now. And we lived through 4 years of endless video of people wandering in. So Trump took the issue and made it the right thing. And then, of course, what did it do? It made the Democrat response insane. We need a bipartisan bill. And it actually, as we talked about yesterday, turned out, no, you didn't. The president just had to do his job. You didn't need a bipartisan bill. You just needed a new president. And then, of course, the even easier one than the border on this about Trump directionally being right. It doesn't mean that every single decision he makes is right, but he's right on about 80% of the stuff. And what's the other one? Of course, it's the gender thing. We all got sucked into this evil gender nonsense. We know that boys cannot become girls. We know that there are biological differences between males and females. We know that boys should not be wrestling with girls in junior high school and volleyball and the rest of it. And Trump got right on it, and that caused the Dems to go completely the other way. Again, it's not always worth saying, but I'll say it one more time. If you're over 18 and you want to wear a wig and put on a dress and call yourself Nancy, if you're nice to me, I'll call you Nancy, okay? It's a two-way street, lady, dude, whatever. Jasmine Crockett, we've been hitting her hard over the last couple of days. She's the new AOC. She looked at AOC, she said, how do I up this lunacy? And she has. Here she is going off on Mr. Elon, and she's also not happy with a certain Trump person.
If you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe. As it relates to X, he has never made a profit since he bought X. In fact, the value of X is 75% lower than it has ever been. So if I am going to go look for somebody to run a business, I'm going to look for someone who is going to run one successfully. And before people start screaming and yelling about, well, he's a billionaire. Yeah, when you know the right people and they'll just give you money, then you can become a billionaire too. And maybe one day all of us will have that kind of access. But until then.
She is so dumb. I think I said it before. She makes AOC look like Margaret Thatcher. First off, telling Trump to stop being Putin's bitch. It's like figuring out how to get peace and not roll ourselves into a nuclear war and not endlessly fund Ukraine. That's not being Putin's bitch, okay? I would say, if you wanna, who's the bitch to who here? I'd say we have been the bitch to Zelensky over the last couple of years, right? He just kept strolling in with his sweatpants and telling us what he wanted, and we kept giving it to him. That seems more bitchy than Trump actually trying to broker peace. That's number one. The idea that people have just given Elon money is absurd. He completely has turned around Twitter. I don't know that it's running at a profit yet. Do we have any numbers on that specifically? But that's irrelevant. First off, the guy also has SpaceX. The guy also has Tesla. Ask the Tesla people people who own Tesla stock, how well that's doing over the last 10 years. He's got the Boring Company. He's got all of these other things. Twitter, when he bought it, he way overpaid. I think it was $46 billion, if I'm not mistaken, which was way over valuation because he knew he wanted to be in the free speech fight. So whatever the numbers actually are in terms of whether Twitter's making more money. By the way, Twitter also for the first year struggled under him because of thanks to people like her and CNN, advertisers were boycotting Twitter. That's largely going away as the culture has changed. Do we have any numbers on Elon and how he switched some of that stuff? We'll look into it. We'll try to get it to you at the end of the show. But that is the point. The Democrats are not particularly bright. And we went into the archives. We said, okay, we can show you all the current videos of Democrats not being bright. Is there something old? Is there something out there that's so old that the video doesn't even have color? Did that even exist? A time when things were in black and white that would perfectly illustrate the mindset of a Democrat. And hot damn, we found one.
You live here?
Yes.
Well, maybe you know what a zombie is.
When a person dies and is buried, it seems a certain voodoo priest who
who have the power to bring him back to life.
Horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
Bob Hope, ladies and gentlemen. We did get some numbers, so it's a little unclear exactly what's going on with the revenue over at Twitter, but the users per month from when he got it to now have jumped from 300 million per month to over 600 million per month. The money will follow that. But again, the implication that somehow he's a bad businessman because of Twitter, all of the other things that he's done just to completely ignore them, it's absurd. I don't think I have to spend any more time talking about Jasmine Crockett today. Let's jump over to the rest of the crazy Dems because they are crazy. Libs of TikTok put this up. Breaking, every Democrat senator just voted keeping men out of women's sports. Democrats hate women. And of course, you can see the vote total there. It was 51-45. That happened right before Trump gave that big speech the other day at the Capitol. And Daniel Cohen, a journalist, wrote this. I thought this was quite good. The same Democrats who can't define what a woman is and voted against keeping biological males out of female sports are wearing pink to protest Donald Trump. So they somehow want to defend women so much that they can't tell you if you have boobs and a uterus that you actually are a woman. And they would also like a 6'4" dude in high school to dunk over a chick. But they're wearing pink, so they must love ladies. That's how it works in their muddled brains. If you want to see how muddled these people are, I wanted to get to this story a couple days ago. This is about a week ago in Boston. And Boston has strangely, we usually talk about LA, we talk about New York, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. Somehow Boston gets a little lost in this, but Massachusetts is really screwy right now. And the mayor of Boston is a complete progressive, absolute lunatic who literally last Christmas held a Christmas party for people of color and excluded white people. I mean, the woman is a nutbag beyond belief. But listen to this story, and this video is going to drive you crazy if you haven't heard about this. This is from Boston News. An off-duty police officer shot and killed a man who is allegedly wielding a knife inside a restaurant near Back Bay's Copley Square Saturday, officials said. 2 people were chased inside a Chick-fil-A on Boylston Street around 5:27 p.m. by a man armed with a knife, Police Commissioner Michael Cox told reporters. Okay, so someone chased some people with a knife trying to kill them in a Chick-fil-A. Which, why would you do that in a Chick-fil-A with all that delicious sauce? The guy got killed. The killer got killed. The killer got killed. Let me say it one more time because I'm going to show you some video that's going to be very confusing. The killer, the man wielding the knife trying to kill people amongst the chicken, he got killed. Here is the response by the Boston mayor, the Boston DA, and the Boston police commissioner.
My condolences and all of our thoughts are with the family of the individual whose life has been lost.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of the individual who's been lost.
So our condolences go to the individual who was killed tonight.
Your condolences go to the individual who was killed tonight, who was chasing people with a knife in Chick-fil-A. Do you see? This is what NPCs are. First off, the way they word it exactly the same. These are non-playable characters. They have a script that they have been programmed, and somehow they think up is down, left is right, good is bad. I don't even, get out of Boston. If you live in Boston, get out of Boston. If having Harvard, the center for Hamas, is not, well, I guess that's really Columbia, but if having Hamas's number 2 spot is not enough for you, how about that? How about the fact that if someone chases you into a Chick-fil-A trying to stab you, all you want is that delicious Polynesian sauce. Okay, what sauce do you like? You like the buffalo. You like the buffalo, you like the honey mustard, what do you like? Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A sauce. You just want your sauce. That's all you want. And your fried chicken. Someone's trying to stab you, they get shot, and then the mayor is upset that guy got shot. You got to get out of that town. There are Chick-fil-A's everywhere. We've got one a mile from here. What does this all lead to? It leads to a great meme. It's a saying for decades now, but it's in meme form, it's even more beautiful. We've played this before. We've shown you this before. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. the weak men that have created the hard times that we are getting out of right now, it's being fixed by strong men who are about to create good times. That's what's happening right now with Trump and the culture reset and everything else. Just a couple more before we get to the community Q&A. Nick Sorter, journalist, put this up related. Let's talk about Ukraine for just a second. Just in, Zelensky backs down to Trump just hours after U.S. pauses all military aid to Ukraine. Thanks, Trump, for helping Ukraine. This was so predictable. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We remember the moment when things changed, when President Trump provided Ukraine with javelins. We are grateful for this. Nick added, I still don't trust this clown. So putting aside what you think of Zelensky or anything else, the point is they had that insane meeting on Friday. Trump threatens to cut the aid. Trump says, we're not going to do this mineral deal anymore. We're done with you. And immediately Zelensky starts groveling back. So strong men create good times, as opposed to the weak men who basically got us on the verge of World War III. One more from Nick. President Trump and Secretary Rubio have secured the extradition of 29 top cartel leaders from Mexico for the U.S. For U.S. prosecution. This is unprecedented. Rafael Caro Quintero, who murdered a DEA agent, was just flown into New York and handed over. This is the highest number of extraditions in one day in the history of Mexico, without question. Former DEA head of international operations, Mike Virgil, told Crash Out, justice is coming and an example will be made. So again, we had weak men. And what did weak men do? They weakened our border. And then what happened as the result of that? Fentanyl and crime and gangs and beheadings and pushing people into subways. Stuff like that. Not good stuff happened. Now we have a strong man in charge who surrounded himself with competent people. And we are going after the bad guys. And we are making sure that the cartels will not operate and less fentanyl will come across and we'll have a border and all of those things. Those things are good. You guys want Chick-fil-A for lunch? Kind of in the mood now. A little Chick-fil-A? All right, we're going to do Chick-fil-A for lunch today. Guys, let me talk to you about lean, and then we'll get to the RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. Are you stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle? You lose weight, gain it all back, plus a few extra pounds, then do it all over again? It's not just frustrating, it's dangerous. Studies show that repeated weight fluctuations can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other serious health problems. That's why doctors created Lean, a supplement designed to help you lose weight and keep it off. Unlike injections, Lean is a natural science-backed formula that requires no prescription. It works by supporting healthy blood sugar levels, controlling appetite, and burning fat by converting it into energy. If you're tired of losing weight just to gain it right back and you're ready to lose weight at a healthy, sustainable pace, Lean was made for you. Get 20% off your first order with code Rubin20 at takelean.com. That's Rubin20 at takelean.com. Start your journey today. All right, community Q&A, here we go. Rochelle says, Trump said he's tried to make Dems happy, but can't get a smile, applause, or any other show of support. What do you think it'll take to bring the left closer to the middle? This is the endless question. This is the endless question. He's right when he says, if I cured cancer, you people wouldn't be happy, right? If you were removing all of the emotion, remove all the culture war and the media from everything that's happened in this last month, does America seem better or worse? And the obvious answer is better. We're removing criminals from our streets. We're making sure less drugs get through. We're protecting our border. There's arguments. Okay, you want to argue over whether the tariffs are going to work or not? Fine. Like the stock market's struggling a little bit. Fine. But they even warned us about that. What did Elon say as they started uncovering stuff? There's going to be some pain points here. But obviously things are better, right? It's just so damn obvious. I don't think it's even worth analyzing. So the question is, what do you do with people who are those NPCs, who have been brainwashed, who still watch it CNN and think it's true, or who get the New York Times and sit there with their cup of coffee and their legs crossed, thinking that they're being enlightened? I don't know how you get more of them at this point. We've brought an awful lot over. That's the point of the Bobby Tulsi thing, right? So we have to keep just being good. I think, you know what? The answer is this. The answer is something that Trump said, that success is the ultimate revenge. If things just keep going well, the crazies on both sides will start feeling less important. The crazies on the left, it's obvious. It's endless and it's obvious and okay, fine. And even the crazies on the right, there's some version of craziness on the right, like a strange thing happening in some portions of the right, but that will go away too, because Trump is for America. And when you're for America, you're for freedom and you're for success. And that's the thing most of us want to be part of. So success is the only answer. I don't know what you do in your own life. Everybody still has these relatives and friends, and it's tough, and you can just try to, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it a Republican. Chipster says, do you know if any proposed tax law changes would take effect this year? So it sounds to me like the answer to that is no, so that if Congress actually went ahead and changed some things, it doesn't kick in for this year, it would kick in for 26. But hopefully they will do some tax reform. You know, look, the secondary benefit of DOGE is not just getting the waste out of the system, it's then, the system can operate with a much tighter budget, so maybe it doesn't need as much of your money. So how about we lower taxes for everybody, which actually is what Trump called for in his speech. I don't want anyone else's money, and I hope that less people want my money. And keep more of your money, when you have more of your money, you tend to spend more of your money, and that's the engine for the economy. So looking at things bottom down, you keep more of yours. Let's see what you do with it. Maybe you want to spend it. Maybe you want to save it. Maybe you want to put it in Bitcoin. Maybe you want to buy a boat, but that's up to you. You don't just get to get other people's money because you want it. That's what Bernie has tricked people into thinking, that somehow greed is, not that greed is good, that unearned, something that is unearned for you should be yours. I think you can actually make an argument that greed is good. That would be the Gordon Gekko argument in Wall Street movie. If you haven't seen it with Michael Douglas, you should. Tony says, with Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm, is there any hope for a Star Wars revival? Maybe if they move towards the old Republic and away from the Skywalker saga. I don't know. I don't have any hope. I really don't. Unless George Lucas himself came back in and really but I know he has no desire to do it from everything I've seen. And George Lucas, people ask me a lot, who's the one person I've not interviewed that I want to? George Lucas is still number one. There's just so many things I would love to talk to him about, not only related to the lore of Star Wars, but also being the rebel against the studios in the 70s and all that kind of stuff. But they've so damaged it, you know, even now, like, you know, I'm doing cardio and I'm flipping through the things that I own on Apple Movies or whatever, and I've got obviously all of the Star Wars on there, and even watching the originals now seem dinged up because of how bad those 3 new ones were. And I like the prequels. I've argued for a long time that as time goes on, the prequels will look better and better. And yes, the acting was bad and the dialogue's a little stiff, but it's a beautiful story, actually. Not only the story of Anakin Skywalker, but it's a beautiful story of how power corrupts and how governments, you know, in the name of security, what was Palpatine doing? In the name of security, he was actually funding a war on both sides that ultimately led to him becoming the Emperor of the Galaxy. Does that sound kind of familiar to some of the things that we've been dealing with? So I just don't have any hope. I don't know what they can do. I watched even Kenobi. I didn't think was great. Did you watch Kenobi? Like, yeah, I watched a little. I don't even have Disney Channel anymore. I had to hijack it somehow. I probably just now the government's going to look into me. Just kidding. Never saw Kenobi. Don't care for it. Olaf says, what is your favorite national park and what national park do you want to visit? I mean, I think my best memory of a national park is when we drove cross country in February 2013 when we were coming from New York to move to LA, and we did that wonderful trip, that cross country trip, which if you've never done, if you are an American, it is a must do. You must drive across this great country once. When you see the breadth of this country and the colors and the differences of the states and the weather changing and the wide open spaces and the prairies and the mountains and all this stuff, it is so absolutely incredible and awe-inspiring that I highly recommend everyone do it. And when we did it, we did stop at the Grand Canyon for a couple hours. We couldn't stay for too long. We had our dog with us, which to do like a 6-day trip with the dog every day is kind of tricky. But the Grand Canyon is unbelievably awe-inspiring and magical and everything else. I've never been to Yellowstone, so that's definitely the easy answer on that. I've got to. Have any of you guys been there? You've been? Yeah, all 3. Wow, the 3. Can I go to Yellowstone with you guys? Can we take a little trip? All right, team building Yellowstone, we're doing it. Joe says, it's Women's History Month. Who amongst the fairer sex do you look up to and who motivated you over the years? Well, of course, we can talk about all of the Golden Girls. We can talk about Dorothy Zbornak, and we can talk about Blanche Devereaux, and we can talk about Sophia Petrillo, and we can talk about Rose Nyland and the wonderful actresses who played all of them. As you know, I'm a Tina Turner guy. I always loved Tina Turner. I love her music, but I also love the story, this woman's story that she was plucked out of nowhere, Nutbush City, Tennessee, and she was nobody. And Ike finds her, sees this unbelievable talent, and then he's abusing her beyond imagination. If you haven't seen the movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? It's a great movie with Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne. It's an incredible movie, but her life story is just unbelievably inspiring. And one of the really cool things at the end of the movie, and it's true actually, is that as they're going through the divorce, she's become Tina Turner now, and she's a star and all of those things, and a star in her own right. And they're going through the divorce, and she says to the judge during the divorce, she wants nothing. She wants nothing from him other than her name. Her real name was Anna Mae Bullock, and all she wants is the name Tina Turner, and then she wants to go build a life on that. And then, of course, she built an unbelievable 30-year career, almost 40-year career post-Ike. So who are some of the other women? I like that Margaret Thatcher. She's pretty good. So the Golden Girls, Tina Turner, Margaret Thatcher. Who are some other cool broads out there these days? There was that old lady on the Titanic, but she talked a lot. Who else was there? Come on, give me another. Who's a cool chick? Who's out there doing some good stuff? Who? That's funny. He said Dick Levine. That's funny. That's funny. Who else? Joan Rivers. I loved Joan Rivers. And man, could we use like the sardonic, sarcastic, brilliant wit of Joan Rivers these days. Oh my God. And let me think of one more chick that I love. Is that it? That's my list? I like Wheezy on the Jeffersons. She was always giving George shit. That was pretty good. All right. Rondi says, Dave, did you have anything to do? Oh, my mom's pretty good. How about my mom? Great lady. Mom, love you. Rondi says, Dave, did you have anything to do with the Democrats and their signs? Because the comedy that has ensued is hilarious. Yes, we'll show you a couple as I'm talking for a moment, but it was so obvious, these idiots, to bring these signs there. They were gonna get made up fun of because of the signs, but then did they not think for 1 minute that the meme makers online were gonna do stuff like you're looking at right now? Like, it was so obvious. You people walk into the trap every time. Be better, please. It would make us better. Let's talk about healthy fat, and we'll have more on the other side. Did you know your breakfast could be setting you up to either gain or lose weight for an entire day? The word breakfast literally means breaking your overnight fast. After about 4 hours post-dinner, your body switches from using food-based nutrients to stored glycogen for energy. Once glycogen is depleted, usually about 8 to 12 hours, your body starts burning fat for fuel through a process called ketogenesis. But here's the game changer. What you eat to break your fast matters. Dr. Stephen Gundry, a heart surgeon from California, discovered that breaking your fast with something called MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, allows your body to keep burning fat throughout the day. He lost 70 pounds in his 60s just by leveraging this method. No extreme dieting, no intense workouts. Want to know exactly how he did it? Dr. Gundry has put together a video explaining his full method tailored to different metabolic types. Go to thehealthyfat.com/Rubin to watch now, or click the link in the description below. That's thehealthyfat.com/Rubin. Talway says, what are your thoughts on Canada threatening to cut off electricity to the northern states in the U.S.? So this has been a thing. I am not worried. I do not think Canada is going to cut electricity. There are other ways we can also get electricity. I also think that it's unfortunate, right? Because Americans love Canadians. Canadians love Americans. I'm here in Florida, where we have so many snowbirds that now just have decided to basically stay here. I'm not even sure it's legal, because they normally come down for the winter to Florida for our good weather, and they just don't even want to go back. But the Canadians and Americans, there's a shared sense of humor, and we're so like each other in so many ways. You guys like poutine on your French fries. We like ketchup, but we put all that stuff aside to basically be similar, right? We're pretty good. Mostly, I think it's through comedy. Like there have been so many great Canadian comedians that have come down here and helped in our culture and all that stuff. I'm not too worried about this situation. I think it's getting a little out of hand. Now we've got Americans booing the Canadian national anthem and Canadians booing the American national anthem. But at the end of the day, this is just the pain point that Trump and Musk talked about. If we were going to do some things to make our trade deals fair, if we were going to do some things that were going to uncover fraud and all these things, there was going to be a pain point involved, right? There is going to be some, if you're going to go in and look at the inefficiency of the federal government, you're going to fire people. that are nice people. Doesn't mean they should have a job. And I think we're dealing with some of that as it pertains to Canada. We're going to put tariffs on, be in a little fight with them. It's going to be a little testy, but in the end, that's how you will make the relationship better, when it's a little give and take and not just a one-way street. Izzy says, any chance Dave could do a reading of a children's book? If so, how about The Little Engine That Could? Well, I do read children's books every night. We put the kids down to books, which often, Justin particularly, he likes. You got to read the book twice. The exact same book I read, one more time, we got to read that same one. I try to bring in as many different books as possible. So I am reading a lot of children's books these days. Are you saying you want me to read a children's book on this show to the audience? That would be an interesting, maybe I'll end the show one day. I'll read a children's book to you. We'll get a good one. We're very seasonal with our books. So we'll see what we can get for the spring. We'll do something for you. Goldie says, Dave, have you made brisket burnt ends on that big green egg? I have made every type of meat known to man on that thing. I think my biggest brisket was like a 17 pounder. I did it for 14 hours overnight. You know, you got to wrap it in the wax and I have done some amazing. Yeah, can I get a round of applause for the types of meat that are going on in this place? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you cook it right, you're going to get those beautiful burnt ends on the end of the brisket, but then you're going to get a beautifully, like, marbly, fatty brisket that's just absolutely perfect. A couple times, it's hard to get a Wagyu brisket, and it's also really expensive, but a couple times I've been able to get a Wagyu brisket that you almost can't screw up. And the big green egg is fun because if you enjoy the process, you know, it's more than just turning on the grill and leaving it for hours. You know, you got to fiddle with the top and the bottom and make sure the smoke is right. And it's just a beautiful little thing. And I highly, highly recommend it if you're a fan of the meats. Monty says, will there be another Rubin Report meetup? Yes, we will figure out something, probably Miami-ish, but maybe elsewhere. We'll try to do something soon. You know, obviously between some of my travel lately and being a little busier, with family life, it's been harder to do things like that than it was a couple years ago where we used to do more of them. But I do love meeting you guys and doing those hangouts and all those things. And I think I mentioned once, I wanted at one time, I was going to do like a big locals hangout at the house, but I got overridden on that by all sorts of people for legal and security and all kinds of other reasons. But you know, I'm trying. All right, one more, guys. Elizabeth says, any big plans for your 10-year wedding anniversary? I cannot believe that it's 10 years. We got married in August of 2015. So yeah, our 10 year is coming. Well, we'll be off the grid, so I don't know where we'll be or what we'll be doing. But 10 years, you know, for gays, that's like 30 years for straight people. So technically it's like our 30th anniversary right now, which I guess that means we just go to dinner at 5 o'clock and we're asleep by 7. Guys, that is our program for today. As I said, there's no post-game show, and if I was to explain to you why, it would be so mind-blowing and just like, it would just be beyond anything that you could possibly deal with this early in the day. But I will be back tomorrow live, and we'll do a longer post-game show, and I thank you for watching. That's all I have to say about that. Goodbye.
The Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation, we must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.